Anybody who tells you that it takes over 3 months to determine, after an autopsy has already been conducted, that a person died from a stroke, anyone who tells you it takes that long is either an idiot or a liar. The information that has come out now that Officer Brian Sicknick, Capitol Police officer, died of natural causes, died without any bruising, without any contusions, nothing. Not a scratch on his body. He died of a stroke. It is sad. He was a good man. He was serving his country. He was serving his city. But he didn't die because of a mob assault. This is really important. And this information was hidden from you. They didn't want you to know about this. Now, why is that? Why is it that Capitol Police, which is exempt from FOIA thanks to Congress, why is it the Capitol Police was willing to hold this information down as long as they did? They've known. Oh, they had to check and see. Check and see what? They had to do further investigation to figure out if a stroke is really a stroke. I mean, it makes no sense. There's no reason for the delay, except they knew they needed to have a body that they could point to and say, see, it's the fault of the Trump supporters, because otherwise all they had was a small unarmed woman shot in the neck for the crime of riot and trespassing. And when you start to look at these, at what's about to happen in this country, let's all remember, riot is something the Democrats will even justify. Destruction of property, rioting, all these things. Yes, I understand. They'll say, oh, a CVS is not the Capitol building. What about a federal courthouse? What about a police station? Oh, I'm sorry. The Capitol is so much more sacred than a federal courthouse, which we know the Antifa lunatics have tried numerous times to burn down in Portland. Why are riots not just unacceptable on the right, and they are, but unacceptable and punished to the fullest extent of the law? Meanwhile, riots on the left are treated like some kind of worthy activism. You know, collateral damage, sure, that'll happen, but to make an omelet, you got to break a few eggs. That seems to be the attitude. It is the attitude of Democrats and the left around this issue. And that's why what you see with the Officer Sicknick update here just goes to show you how unbelievably reckless, dishonest, and disgusting the Democrat corporate media is. CNN, MSNBC, New York Times, Washington Post, they actually put in, not only did they put in the details about beaten to death with a fire extinguisher, this is repeated all the time. And I sit here and I have to apologize to you because I believed the initial reports based upon the fact that every major news organization in the country reported them. I wasn't there, and I can usually smell the BS. I can usually, see the lies as they come out. But this is just so egregious. They've gone even beyond my expectations. So I say to you, I'm sorry that I believed that even on the most fundamental of facts, we could take national corporate Democrat media at its word. Now you know that when the stakes are high enough, they're not going to lie about everything. They're not going to lie to you about the weather. They're not going to lie to you about, the best, grilled chicken paillard recipe or something. They're going to lie to you about things that matter, like this, when it's important to the narrative and their power and their worldview. And now they've proven they will lie about anything. They will just lie about absolutely anything. There's nothing that you can say, oh, I don't need to fact check that. If you have any kind of an inclination that something's up, got to chase it down. So I always tell you, I will admit any mistakes on the show, and I tell you that I am sorry that at the beginning, now I've been reporting for weeks or talking for weeks here on the show about how clearly something's up, and clearly he wasn't actually killed, otherwise we would know all the details, and he wasn't killed by a marauding, rioting Trump supporter mob. But just the fact that I even believed in the very beginning and assumed that how could they lie about that? I mean, it's hard to believe. They did. They did. I know a lot of you are nodding your heads up and down. Yup, Buck. Never even give them the most baseline of credit. Why would I give them credit on something? Or why would I give them, the credit needed to believe something like this? Because even in Pravda, even Soviet propaganda, there has to be some foundation of truth to pile the lies atop. But what we see here is, no, they'll actually lie about the foundation as well if it's really necessary for them. Even on one of the most key details, one of the most black and white details imaginable, they'll just lie about it. Yeah. And then the government will help cover it up. Remember, this is the Biden administration. Capitol Police had a real black eye over what happened, pardon the expression, what happened during the riot, but they were they looked unprepared. They looked not in any way ready to deal with the crowd control situation they had. But here's what the removal of Brian Sicknick, Capitol Hill officer Brian Sicknick, from this equation as a casualty of the Trump rioters, the Trump backers at that riot. Here's what that does. The only person who was killed was a Trump supporter, shot in the neck, Ashley Babbitt. The only one. Everyone else who died of a heart attack or, people got overexcited or whatever. No. So now what really happened on January 6th? It was a riot. It was an unruly crowd that broke into the Capitol and ran around like a bunch of idiots, and they trespassed, and they shouldn't have done that. They shouldn't have destroyed property. And, I believe in the law. I believe we have laws for a reason. So none of that is excused at all, but they're locking them up like they were agents of Osama bin Laden trying to truly overthrow the United States government. Think about what they've done here. I mean, they got a guy running around in a raccoon skin hat with face paint on and a spear as his weapon, and he's the great, terrifying leader of the insurrection. They say yes. The Democrat media, the frauds, the phonies, the hysterics, they say, yeah, that's right. He was gonna overthrow the United States government. It was an insurrection. The insurrectionists. They throw this around as a slur against all Trump voters. Never mind anybody who was actually even at the protest that day who didn't take part in the riot. They're, of course, considered part of the white supremacist insurrection. Lies. They were lying to you, friends, about Officer Sicknick, because they were lying to you about this being a lethal force usage to overthrow the government. That's not true. And it really matters right now, because what you're about to see is likely a whole lot of violence, a whole lot of destruction and rioting by Biden voters in Minneapolis and probably in cities across the country. Depends. We don't know yet, but that's what you're going to see. And Democrats aren't going to want to lock people up for decades, even if they do attack government facilities, federal buildings, even if they engage in arson and assaults on police officers. No, they're going to say this is what happens when people are angry. They'll excuse it. They'll explain it away. This is a reminder to all of us that the left in this country is kicking at the load-bearing walls of our civilization. You've heard me say it, and it is more true now than ever. There is no foundational principle. There is no unifying goal for them. With us, all that matters to them is power. And the recklessness and the dishonesty and the viciousness that will accompany whatever riots happen in the days ahead will be just a reminder of who and what we are up against. And the fact that the corporate media, which is just an extension of the DNC now, could spend months waving around the bloody shirt, so to speak, of Officer Sicknick in order to create a perception that there was a true insurrection, a violent coup to overthrow the United States government. The people who said that are liars. They are either out of their minds or they are the most vicious deceivers you could possibly find. And they're all across the top of the United States government. They are elected Democrats in office. They are multimillionaire TV news anchors and whole broadcast stations and newspapers. And they are hurting this country with what is now just more clear than ever is an effort to destroy the political opposition that they hate so much through lies and the force of the state. We either fight against this or we cede the country to people who excuse riots when it suits them and who lie about riots to make them seem much worse when it benefits them.
Hey, Team Buck, thank you so much for watching The First on YouTube. If you like this video, please click that little thumbs up button so then it will log as liked. And also, if you want to see more great content from The First, please click subscribe.